and I had it in the cab of the lorry. I was like, I'm fucking keeping that. It's a wash. But I love it. Like, yeah, everyone was just like,
Thank you for coming. Sorry to interrupt. Cheers, everybody. Cheers. Cheers.
this is great.
Right, I'm going to stay there, and I'm going to first of all introduce everyone to whoever's going to look and listen to us. So there, where they're looking at us, that's Polly.
Oh my God.
That's Alice. That's Wu. That's me. Huh. And Peter is there, but you can't see him. And then there's a Zoom recorder there for the podcast.
Is this live?
Yeah, that's live.
It's already live already.
Oh my
It's already
God.
live already. They were seeing your bum, weren't they?
Yeah, it says Dal Vivo live.
Shit.
So it's a bit inaccessible, I'm afraid.
It's okay. I can
Right, so I'm going to stay here.
stand carefully in places that I think are not weeds.
Do it.
Shuffle here if I get it wrong.
It's all right.
You are at the sun. You're lucky. And you're British. Not so British.
Do we have to submerge?
No, you don't have
You don't have to. It's not obligatory. You can sit on the side.
No, it's all right once you
You
get
can
in there, isn't
You
it?
can sit there on that corner. The corners are
Alice
seats.
as well. It's so
The middle
cool.
of the poles are not seats, but the corners are all seats. This one is, of course, completely only for Jesus.
So I thought, given that the Museum of Dark Matter is all about, the 99% surplus that hasn't been shining and all that jazz, and that we would talk about privilege.
Have you begun, Chris? Why not Chris? I think we're in a chat show on TV or something.
I think we should have chat show notes, actually.
Okay, so,
I'll be wrong.
I can already call you Chris.
It's good. It's going to a good start, anyway.
I think just to break your balls, I think that's pretty much a very good way of starting talking about privilege. So let's talk about someone who's already had half a glass of beer, half a pint of beer before at 12 o'clock, and he's sitting in a pool at the sun in the middle of London, innit?
Yeah, I'm
How
all up for that.
privileged is that?
Talk amongst yourselves then. I don't need to defend myself.
Yeah, get the fuck out of my pool, right?
I can't.
But I mean, so I think we need to go back to the basics here. Like, is privilege inherently a bad thing? Like, what?
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Like,
very
it's,
good. Oh,
you know-
because privilege doesn't mean bad
Well,
necessarily.
does it? Like, why is it inherently? Like everyone's privileged by something, by something. So, what inherently is? Is there inherently anything bad with having a privilege of having?
No, I think the problem is not the privilege in itself, but is being aware of the fact that you're privileged in some kind, because then, not just because being aware is good, because one might say, so what?
Well, that's
But
my catchphrase.
But
Anyway.
because once you know it, then you might act differently. And I think, so no, I don't think privilege is bad.
Basically, because I think the thing that's complicated about it is that there is no universal truth on it. So one person's idea of what is a privilege might not be the same for another person. So I think it's very difficult to who then becomes who has the privilege to decide what the actual privileges are. That's what I want to know.
Yes.
It gets really complicated though, because if we take my personal circumstances, I've just retired. Do I not deserve this pool that I bought with my own money?
No, you should be living in
Penury.
Exactly. You should live a life of drudgery. And,
I should permanently.
Yeah.
I should not have had to have worked for my pool or anything. It's nothing to do with
Well, I mean-
history. It's only to do with this split second in time. The haves and the have-nots at this split second in
so
time.
you've let us in your pool.
I have met
You're
you.
not like, well, I've earned this pool. Get your fucking dirty bodies
Cuts
out of my
pool.
Yeah. So
Okay, so it's not about privilege then. It's about how you use it.
yeah. That's what I would say.
So when we talk about privilege in the all the fluff that about on the Museum of Dark Matter about the unprivileged, should I have specified what do I mean by that?
Well, that's what I said to you because I said, what does that mean? Like,
But that's the point. The point is, because you see, for me, the point is exactly that. It's like, okay, so I'm going to say that all the unprivileged are going to be here. Now, let's see who is unprivileged. Out of all the artists that have participated until now, as picked on my poke, let me know if you're privileged, how privileged you are, if you have ever worked for paid or whatever. Nobody has picked up on it, but we always talk about it a lot, no? Like, oh, wow, these people are so privileged. Oh, you're privileged, I'm not privileged, but you're privileged. But then when it's time to act, all right, so let's put the cards on the table. Yeah, I'm not going to put my cards on the table.
Yeah, but that's what I think that's how it is with it, because it's one of those subjects that's nice to talk about in theory, but nobody. I mean, that's the other thing about saying like it's difficult to quantify in one's own realm, isn't it? Like, so you can say, oh well, this over here is an example of this, but then lives are more complicated than just these factors. So you don't see it in those sort of like simplified terms in your own existence, because that isn't really how life is. It isn't just a sort of like
simplified though.
Yeah, but I think it is a
Oh, but
yeah.
it is really simple. It is really simple. If you have come from a long line of MPs who made their money out of slavery, that's simple for me.
But that's one very extreme case.
It's not just an extreme case.
But also
the fact of the matter is that that a lot of the people who are still in power have been in power for hundreds of years.
Yeah, but there's plenty of people who have benefited from that system who would not see themselves as in any way privileged from it, even though to an outside, I mean, even those people you're talking about would probably say, oh no, but I work for a charity and I do this, and I've used my privilege to do X, Y, and Z. So even those people would probably not turn around and say, oh well, I've been privileged by slavery, because they said, well, they see this, and I don't approve of those things at all. Even though everything, their education has been paid for by it, and all of this stuff, like, which that's what I'm saying. It's like there can't be like a common sense on it though. There can't be a like, oh well, we have to have common sense, because there is no common sense on it. That's what
So the pain of it is all in generalizing, basically, because the moment you say something about it, the moment you say, oh, but we're all white, therefore we're privileged, that's when it all goes bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah. But also it's like you're not just these sort of like stratified kind of like collection of identities, do you know what I mean? That you can kind of mathematically equate into, these sort of points of. It just doesn't work, does it? Like, it doesn't work like that, I don't think. But I think that it gets discussed like it does work like that. You know what I mean? It gets talked as if, when something gets talked about, like, we should all know the rules of it. It's like nobody's specified it.
So we need to lay down ground rules.
Well, I think we should just disband it all together.
Yeah, because I can't cope.
Yeah. But also, it's very,
If I've got to do a whiteboard of like criteria, then
yeah,
that sounds like hard work, and I'm retired.
Yeah, well, exactly. I've got too much time. You're probably the fucking pool sometime. I can't be just writing on the whiteboard all day. Like.
But you were talking about artists, weren't you?
Yes.
If you've never had to work and never had to, buy your materials with the money that you made out of a cleaning job, for example, that is the bottom line, isn't it? If you're so devoted to making art, but you're still doing it in spite of a horrendous financial situation, which we know a lot of people are, or may never manage to become an artist simply because of that fact.
Yeah.
Then that's
So
the
it's
difference between what I think of as privilege and what I think of as not, being privileged. Where you get an allowance, and then I think I'll go to art school. And then there's no problem about money at all.
But I think that's one of the things that I find worrying about art as a kind of being sold as or being discussed or talked about as something that should be therapeutic or whatever, or like this is something that I do because it's soothing or it makes me feel better, and it's like I don't feel like that about art at all. I feel like it's a continuous fucking battle, and most of the time I find it stressful and upsetting. Because it's not something that's like you know, I get to choose to do as a hobby. It's like if I want to do it, I have to make that space in my life that I'm not lorry driving or something like that, or some shitty, horrible job, so that I can do those things. And I think that attitude, you know, for me, I don't understand it. I'm not saying that, you know, people shouldn't enjoy art, people shouldn't find it relaxing, but do you know what I mean? I can't understand it because I feel that way of looking at it is something I've never had. I've never had the pleasure of being able to say this is, and also being brought up by someone who had to fight to make art, you know, and not be just a cleaner all the time or whatever. It was all kind of like, this is a fucking battleground.
Well, this is why my mum and dad never wanted me to do anything like that, neither history nor art nor anything.
No
like
music.
That. No music.
No?
Because you're not going to find a job and you're not going to pay for your life. So you're going to go and do engineer. Full stop. Unless you pay your university by yourself, which I never did. So I was like, all right. And then I dropped.
What, so did you do engineering?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I dropped.
Yeah.
But,
Engineering would be quite cool.
It's really cool nowadays.
I would love to do engineering.
Yeah.
well, you know.
That's your fucking privilege that you can turn down an engineering degree. Like,
Well, yeah, but I turned it down and.
no, I'm joking. If you don't want to do it, why would you do it? Like, don't do something you don't want to
But
do.
because when you're 18, you don't really know.
Yeah.
I didn't.
18
I
is
wasn't
very
sure.
young to
I wasn't
decide,
sure.
isn't
And if
it?
my dad tells me that's the right thing to do, even if you're very good at playing music and everyone says that you're very good, I'm telling you, you should do engineering. You just go, right, you must be right? He's much older than me. He's managed to bring up a family. He's keeping money coming and going. My mum is the same. She's working. Better get my ass together and work. Full stop.
Yeah.
And then you're privileged anyway. So fuck you. It's like, well, if I end up being privileged because I've had the chance to study and I've had the chance to get my ass together and get a career together, well then I'd rather, if anyway I'm in the beddies kind of thing, because you've got there and you got something and well then I'd rather do it to what I want. That's why I came so late.
Yeah.
In my 40s, I went, I wasted all my life ticking the boxes. Mum and dad are happy.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But that's, for example, you know, when we were having our conversation, I worked for Coca-Cola and I got myself a flat. And therefore, am I privileged? Well, I'm privileged in the sense that I managed to do those things, to get them myself. So that's the privilege. For me, it's a privilege to think of being an artist, to even think about it, because it means your headspace is in a space where you think you can do what the fuck you like. The fact that you can think about that, even whether you do it or not, you can manage to do it, but to think about it is already a privilege.
No, but I don't think I disagree, because I think that's also tied up with how you're brought up. So, you know, this, like you say, you were brought up with that wasn't given to you as an option. This is, you know, this was not told to you. Like, but if I was to give my mum this as an example, which was really, really severely dyslexic, and was basically told she was fucking useless. You know, she wasn't told there was anything else she could do. She was told she was just obviously like mentally deficient or whatever. And then, you know, she's really fucking good at art. She gets in on a scholarship in somewhere. You know what I mean? That is what she could do. That wasn't a case of like she had the freedom to go and bum around with the artists and found out that way. It was like she was literally told she could not do anything. I mean, you know, she's really clever, but you know, back then it was just like, no, you're.
But that was how it was 40 years ago.
Yeah, especially in like a bloody nunnery convent school in Essex, Harlow, Newtown, where it was like, no, you're just fucking, you know. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's why I mean, I don't think there is. I think it's really difficult to try and say that there is any universal truth on it, because that for you, for your position, is a different. You know, the things you have been told have been possible for you are different. So you know, it would have been a case of you being like, actually, no, I'm going to go and just do what I want, for you to think like that. But there are other people who end up in that situation from a different.
Not because they think that they can do what they want, but because that's the only thing they can do, or they're great at doing.
Yeah,
Okay,
you know,
fine.
this is obviously something they can do, and they're not being told you're fucking stupid. They're being told, wait a sec, you're really good at this. So, you know,
Yes.
suddenly this is something that you then go, right, well, I'll go and apply for things. Like, but I also think that, like, having the option to bum around and do nothing shouldn't even be seen as a privilege. It should be seen as like a base goal for humans. I don't think that, you know what I mean? Like, that shouldn't be seen as a, you know, I think that, you know, we should be encouraged to,
Yes, work is not what you have to do to be
yeah,
right. To be, yes.
yeah, yeah.
It's like a state of being. Oh, so if you work, then you are.
And I mean, I understand in uni, obviously, they're trying to set us up for reality or whatever, because, you know, we're just young kids out of school and we don't know. So I understand this, like, but but you know what I mean? I also feel like, in a way, it kind of taints it a bit to be like, oh, well, you know, you could get a job as a you know, receptionist in a gallery here or something. I mean, you're in the art world, and that's great, isn't it? And it's like, well, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're looking for careers, I wouldn't come here to art, really, necessarily.
Yes.
But that shouldn't be negative on it. That should be like a celebration of, like, wait a sec, this is something that you have some autonomy in, because it's
Yes,
not about
it's
yeah.
untied to the,
or
to the
it,
9 to 5 rat race.
or it can be, or whatever, yeah.
But that's what I mean by being privileged to think about it, to even think, oh, I can do something, or I want to do, or I would love to do. There's people that don't even think about that. They can't even think about that because their main thing, like my mom said to me once, it's like, oh, you're having mental issues, and that's because you don't have any real issues like bringing food to the table. You're privileged.
Because nobody's been poor and mad at the same
No,
time.
never. And if they were, it was probably because they were sorting out the bread.
Yeah.
You need to see that in the street, really, with the plastic collecting cup in the tube, poor and mad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're lovely, my mum and dad, by the way. I mean,
Yeah, well, I've seen them in.
yes, yeah.
I think that's really cool that they've
But
done
they're a
things.
product also of their time and their upbringing.
But that's the other thing. I think it deals a lot with, I mean, all these concepts, like law. When you study law, there are some concepts that are cultural concepts, like what is good, what is publicly showable, and they change with time.
Yeah.
And this privilege is the same. It's this context, this moment is time, in relation to this thing. As soon as you move the thing that way, then it's a completely different thing, because
But in books, it used to be that if somebody like had a great big house and a pool and stuff, they used to share it with their mates, the poorer mates. I don't know, is that still going on? Because I think there seems to be a kind of culture now of not sharing so much.
individual.
I mean, I think this is the thing, and this is what I think it kind of boils down to, that it, you know, it as a discussion it goes on a lot, but people don't enact it in a very sort of practical way, as in just sharing their resources, you know. So it's fine to say, oh, I recognise my privilege, but that means nothing. That means absolutely nothing in the real world, you know, if you're hoarding your resources and you're not helping out people who are, you know, not in a position to be able to maybe go out and do these things. Or, you know, it's why I've got, you know, a problem with the sort of art projects that come into the working class communities and say, oh, we're going to bring this, because you're not enabling people to have the autonomy to make their own art. You're taking what you believe to be culture to them and saying this is what you're lacking, and not giving them just the tools. If you instead of, why not share the resources that you've got, that you're getting paid to go there? Why not just give the community that money and say, you know, do what you want with it?
See what you can do. Let's see what you can do.
If you don't want a mural, you don't have to have one.
Yeah.
You could be something else.
It's all about submitting a design and having it approved and blah, blah, blah. And it's more like town planning than proper shared community artworks.
But also, there's so many places and examples of communities that have done stuff. They've made their own little gardens, or they've done whatever, and you know, they've made little spaces that become communal areas, and they can do what they want with it. And they come in and they get, you know, knocked down, or the council say there's no planning permission. And really, that would be a better place to put one's resources, is to supporting those campaigns that already exist within communities, or where they're saying, look, this pub's been shut for years, why can't we have our pub open, why can't we have the community have it, it's just here and it's empty. And then it's like, oh yes, you can have it, but it has to be outsourced to an artist that's not from this area, like, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Yes,
you
like
know.
I refused two bookings at my flat by Airbnb to make money to have this room with the pool.
this isn't even your pool.
No, it's not my pool. But I'm paying for it. I'm paying. Anyway,
Yeah, there's an entrance fee, 20p.
Yeah.
my Airbnb.
I dropped mine in the foot bucket.
Cheers.
I refused two bookings because there was this lady the second time. One time it was, oh, we're having some artists for the lottery, because Walthamstow, Lloyd's Park won the lottery. William Morris won the lottery, and since then they've done up Walthamstow completely, and there's all these trendy hipsters and artists thing, and Walthamstow has become trendy. Anyway, lots of artist shit, and we got this money from the lottery, and we're having these guys to do five guys to do one sculpture in the Walthamstow area. I don't know where. They're coming from Poland. So the money is the money from the lottery UK for the council of Walthamstow. And you're trying to book an Airbnb place, so pay some of their money to bring 5 artists, men from Poland. I've got nothing against Poland or anything, but I applied for that same thing and I didn't get it. And I'm here, and it's about local stuff and local people. And then another one. 6 months after, all this, by the way, in COVID times, it's like,
Does seem a bit weird in COVID
and
times.
I've got
not
one
in normal
German,
times
one American,
because
one
it's
South
open for-
African. Fucking hell, you're bringing everyone for Wood Green to make 3 sculptures in Wood Green, in the woods of Wood Green. To make 3 sculptures in the wood of Wood Green with the mud. I have no idea.
It's
with
just the
the
name. There's
with the
woods
money-
here. Do they not know that?
With the
I mean, it's
money
right
of
next to the
having
green.
it.
That's
I've
what
got a
it would say.
proposal to make woods in Wood Green, actually. Proper old oak.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why she's got
Forests.
25
I
miniature
got some
oaks.
oak trees coming along ready
Yeah.
to make a bit of reparation for slavery and the slave ships. It's only a tiny gesture.
You
So
can
I
plant
think-
them up at the farm.
Oh, I want to plant them here in Wood
Ah,
Green because
yeah.
this is where the problems of gangsters is.
They would plant them in the green.
On Duckett's Common.
Yeah.
There should be a tiny forest of oaks on Duckett's Common. That's my opinion,
Yeah.
and I'm sticking to it. Something's going to last because they take 300 to grow, 300 in their prime, and 300 years to die. So that's 1,000 years of legacy, isn't it? Nice.
100, 1,000.
300 years to grow.
So it's 1,000 euros.
Yeah, didn't I say 1,000 now?
Yeah.
I said 1,000.
Okay, so I understood 100.
1,000 years of legacy.
Oh wow.
Oh, nice. Good. They're privileged.
Yeah. I know.
Can you show them?
You don't like them
Can you
privilege.
show them to the camera, please?
Wow.
Do you know what? Like, what privilege really means to me is it's actually Sam's nickname was for ages because he was really pissed at a barbecue and he went for a piss and he came back and he had his cock hanging out. My mate was like, Sam, your cock's hanging out. He went, yeah, privilege. And then after that, we just called it Privilege Rated, and I found these sunglasses, and they said Privilege Club down the side, and they were like the
wow.
best, and I used to wear them, and then my mum sat on them. So that's how I know I'm not privileged, because my glasses are broke. Yeah, my privileged sunglasses got sat on. Yeah. They were fucking cool.
So basically, as long as I've got a tattoo says privilege, I'm privileged, right?
Mm. But you haven't got one. Do you want one?
Because I haven't got any tattoos. I don't do tattoos. But when I will feel really privileged, I will do it too. But it's not going to be privileged. It's going to be just an octopus on my head, but a robotic, like a kind of with robot octopus.
That doesn't sound like a tattoo. It is an animatronic hat.
Ah, could
And
me
animatronics
also
hat.
as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
Nice.
yeah, the two of that.
yeah,
I don't know. That is a kind of robotic,
cool.
post-apocalyptic. Think.
You can have it once you can say it. Okay, that's the rules.
Okay, well then that's it, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't know, like, you know, I suppose that the art world, we're meant to talk about these things, aren't we, all the time? And I just feel like sometimes it's like that's where it begins and ends with me. You know what I mean? It's like, oh,
There's no truth. We'll never get there.
no, but it's just like, oh, we've discussed that now. That's sorted. We'll just move on. It's like these things still exist just because we've discussed them. They're still going on. You know what I mean? Like it
But
becomes
the whole scene changed in the art world when degrees had to be paid for. When was that? 2014 or 20?
2016.
was it?
When you started having to pay tuition fees
Yeah.
for a degree. For a long time, you
Yeah.
didn't have to. You just had to find your digs, as
Yeah.
my mum used to say. And even some people didn't have to find their digs because in the olden days they used to get their housing benefit paid even
Yeah. Well,
up to a point.
Squatting
Up
was
to
a
a
lot
point, or they were
easier.
squatting, or they were living in housing co-ops.
Yeah.
The peppercorn rents,
Yeah.
and the whole landscape has changed since.
You were in a peppercorn, right?
I paid a peppercorn rent.
Yeah.
I had to pay 3 peppercorns every week for my rent. Spice is quite expensive, even from the Indian shops.
Well, because you were in East Ham, so they had really good peppercorn.
Yeah, they did.
They know the
good.
peppercorns.
Are good there.
East Ham seems quite nice actually.
I lived in Forest Gate. It was lovely.
Forest Gate, where's that? Is that
Near
Worthing
East
Forest?
Ham.
Is it
Yeah.
Worthing Forest?
It's
Forest
not the
Gate,
back
no,
of.
Walton, no, it's not there. No, it's just beyond Mile End. It's beyond Stratford, next to Stratford.
Yeah. Is that not the same one? It is, yeah, going out towards Essex, isn't it? Forest Gate.
Going out towards Essex,
Essex?
it's like Watford is up north.
Gosh, I know these things, shouldn't I? The lorry driver and I don't know where anything is.
No, Forest Gate is just next to Stratford, and between that and West Ham and
But you
East Ham.
get to Forest Gate from the Epping Forest, from the hospital. What's the
Yes.
hospital?
Yeah.
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 So you go right.
Whips Cross.
Which cross, yeah.
Cross.
I used to
No,
live
to
there.
the right.
It's
No,
really, really spooky. Haunted.
Haunted.
Well, I had my second job today, by the way. I'm
Did you?
Well, we're all privileged if we get jabs, aren't we? In globally speaking, at the moment,
yeah. So that's a privilege.
apparently.
And I haven't done it yet. Wait for it.
I can't even put. Oh, I put my first actually now. That was pretty good, yeah. It was like wouldn't let me do it. The system was really, really weird. It wouldn't let me do it for ages. I managed it. In Wood Green, in fact.
How lovely.
Oh, I know, that's what I thought. That'd be nice. Nice day out. Come and visit it.
Yeah. When is it?
3 weeks, I think.
In 3 weeks' time. Yeah.
I thought I was booking it for this week, right? And then when it sent me the confirmation, it was 3 weeks' time.
Do you need a hat?
No, I'm okay. Yeah.
I've got a lot of spare hats.
I'm protected by my halo,
Good.
the invisible one.
Do you want? If you want more tea, I can make you some more tea.
No, I'm fine. But thanks.
But for example, so just keeping on talking. So it's all about. It's never going to be sorted. It's contextual
Yeah.
to anything and everything. It's relative. Oh, it's relative. Like what is it that is relative? Einstein said something about relativity. Everything is relative, right? So this is relative as well. It's relative. Oh, that's great. Privilege is relative.
So we sorted that one out, have we?
Yeah, that's it. Done.
Yeah.
That's it. Tick the box.
Yeah.
Now,
Come
relative.
on, I demand the right to judge people. I'm going to step into
Yeah,
the middle of the pool and demand the right to judge some people.
Nobody's stopping you.
If you make your money out of certain things, I'm going to judge you big time.
Yeah.
And then you send your daughter or son to art school because, you know, you can, because you've got pots loads of money, and they don't realise and act like an arsehole. I
Yeah.
mean, basically, it's a bit
But
like
that,
an
but this is
arsehole.
it.
This is the
It's
qualifying
not.
factor.
But that's it.
Then
It's not privilege.
I'm gonna
It's
judge you.
asshole. It's not privilege. It's being an asshole. It's different.
Is it?
I think that's very different.
That's an interesting distinction.
Really, but I think that
They go hand in
yeah,
hand.
yeah, yeah.
Now there's a big statement.
Sorry, I was like, I'm going to behave myself. This is on film.
Walking on thin ice there now.
No, but I mean, I think that, you know, if I like the same as I was saying about how you approach art as being like, oh, well, for me, this is something that I get to do as a sort of hobby. I think that attitude can spill over into a lot of things when you are continuously told that, you know, this the world is here for your taking because you were brought up with nothing ever being questioned. That, you know, these are things that you just get because this is how you live, and, you know. And I'm not saying this is always the case, but that, you know, because people do say, wait a sec, what, you know, how is this right that, you know, I'm in this situation and others aren't? But then you get this, the kind of meritocracy thing going on where people think, well, no, I'm not here because I've been, you know, had it all sort of laid out for me. I'm here because I deserve it more. Do you know what I mean? And I think that attitude can make you a total arsehole. And people do, because they look at people who are homeless on the street and think, well, that person, if they actually, you know, I mean, if they just worked harder or did this, they wouldn't be there with no home, because look, I'm here and I've got all of this sorted, and that's because I worked for it. It's not taking into account the fact that a lot of that has been laid out for them in their
But that's
background.
yes. But that's very particular, I think, of certain countries and cultures. So, for example, UK is a very meritocratic country, like US. As soon as you move to a very Catholic country or socialist, it all changes. So my dad, for example, is one of those. Oh well, if you didn't get what you wanted because you didn't work hard, it is a better. So don't cry on yourself or whatever. But because I don't know, there's this kind of belief that everyone is born the same. How can you? I mean, how can you make a theory like the meritocracy theory based on the fact that, right, given that everyone was born out of a pussy, everyone is born the same, and therefore, if we put everyone on the same level, then everyone should be
It's
able
like
to do
Macbeth.
that. But that's what the theory of meritocracy is, right? It's like how is it possible that we even bought into that? I mean, it's so wrong from the beginning. Like to start saying, oh, because we were all born from the same pussy, kind of thing. And if we make all the all the practicalities the same for you and me, like I give you a piece of bread, the same bigness as me, same roof, we're gonna be absolutely exactly the same. Forgetting where were you born, who is your mom and dad, how much love they give you, whatever.
Yeah, but I think obviously mentalities like that are pernicious and they get internalized, but I think generally it is people who are from a position of privilege who hold that, not people who are living in an existence where it's kind of fucking obvious to them that they haven't had much of an opportunity. So they're like, well, you know, they know that they've busted their balls and worked 3 jobs or whatever, and then something's gone wrong and their house has gone to shit and they've ended up on the streets. And they know that that's not for a lack of hard work, but it's the people who, rather than saying, okay, well, I've had this advantage and therefore I will share my resources because this person is just lacking in resources. That's all they're lacking is resources. Instead, it's a lot easier to say, well, you know, we've all had the same opportunities here, and you know, actually, you've obviously just fucked up. Like you've obviously just not worked hard enough, because then you don't have to then share your resources, because this becomes an issue of someone would just you know, spend it on cider and
I
get
think
drunk in the
you're
park.
right. I totally agree with you on one side, but I don't think everyone who does this kind of thinking process comes from a position of privilege. I think a lot of people who have the same thinking process are not necessarily from a position of privilege, but it's their hope, it's life. So
This
it
is what I
worked
mean,
for
though.
me.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. It gets internalized. This belief. This is a very it's very much. I mean, like you say, this is a culturally specific thing, but like it's very much. We're very much told. This is this is the fantasy, and this is even the way even the way like celebrities are discussed, or how we discuss even fucking royals or the people who marry them or whatever. Is this sort of idea of like that this could be if you just behave yourself and you're good and you work hard. I mean, it's just religion again, isn't it? It's just a way of saying, no, just fucking behave yourself because then you'll get the rewards afterwards. And it's a sort of, I mean, but that's been part of our cultural, psyche for so long that it is internalized. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying it isn't, that people don't, and that there's only, this is specific to only the people who have the privilege, but I'm saying it's a lot easier if you haven't had the privilege to know that you've got there not because you haven't worked hard or whatever, that you know that things are fucking unfair because you can see that from that perspective. But it's harder to see that and to see that this is a fallacy when you never had that physically challenged because you've had those certain things. And there's so many things that you might not see as being part of a privilege, for example, of even just learning how to behave in certain situations, or how to not, how to not to make yourself acceptable in certain situations so that you will be able to go to these things.
Yes.
You will be invited to these things.
Yes.
And that might have nothing to do with how you behave, how good you are at the job or whatever it is, if you what I mean. But there's certain things that people don't realize.
Yes, my dad always tells me that you need to be able to adapt and be comfortable in every situation with every person, because then you can go. But it's true. It's true because I think once if you try to be a comfort or it's because you need to understand it. So you come from a different perspective. It's not just I don't know. I need to sit on this table with all these eyebrows people. It's about shit. I need to feel comfortable with it once. So then you understand how this thing works. Then the next one, you're gonna be understanding something else, so it enriches you, kind of way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a really I think there's complicated stuff to that, because I mean, one of the things that I've been reading recently is Bev Skeggs, and she's got this whole thing about there's the mobile self, the reflexive self, and there's all these, and it's about whether or not you're brought up being told that you have the right to identify yourself, to decide who you are, and that's something that's denied of working class people. So the idea that you could say, I will go somewhere and learn how to fit in or be different amongst that, is because you're given the right to self, to be the author of yourself, rather than being told that this is who you are, this is your position in society or whatever, and that being a kind of static thing that you have no way of escaping.
So who tells who? Who tells you saying the working class? But I don't believe that. I believe it's different from person to person.
What do you mean?
I believe it's not just a question of class. It's a question of. So I believe some working class people do know that they have the right, or that they can be whatever they like. Some privileged people do know that they have the right.
Yeah.
But some working class people weren't even told that they had the right to. Some privileged people weren't told, because all they were told maybe was, this is you.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is not on a sort of individual level of one person knowing, but more on a social level of the idea of being able to reinvent yourself, or to be these things in different situations where there are certain sort of markers that would say, no, this is this, you're stuck with this or whatever, and this is not something that the working class would think of themselves even, do you know what I mean? Or even being working class was not something constructed by the working class, it was something that they were, do you see what I'm saying? It's something that's been put upon them that has been in itself is an act of saying, well, this is your status. This is, you know, you are now a thing. This did not exist. You know what I mean?
You
Like,
have a name now.
yeah,
You belong to this.
But
yeah,
this uniformity and kind of conventions and club is kind of like the civil service. You know, it's a known fact that there's certain ways of behaving that people are kind of almost trained, and or the diplomatic corps or whatever. There's a history of where you went to school, what your family was. It's a terribly masculine kind of way of being as well, isn't it? It's a way of recognizing. It's a kind of shortcut. It's been a shortcut for men to be able to quickly recruit other men to become part of what are clubs, but get the job done. Because we need this job done, and we're all going to benefit from getting the job done as efficiently as possible. So let's have some training. Okay, so did he go to Sandhurst? Did he go to Blah? Did he go to Eton? All right, okay, which we already know some facts about. And I'll just call up so-and-so and just find out, well, how was he at Eton? Just give me the quick, because they used to do that to me when I was working in the university. Just the computer animators, like talk to the head of DreamWorks. Oh, so who's the best in your year? Quick, I need a quick shortcut to find recruitment. And I think that's basically and that's how the patriarchy worked for a long time. Things have got a little bit messier now, but it did work, didn't it? It was awful in lots of ways, but it works. And it's all about this ability to recruit people and to carry on the professions or the
but also I thought
government. Yes.
What?
Speaking,
Yes.
there is a sort of a, there's also this thing of like, you've been through this process. You are kind of, you're not going to be a safe.
You're not a liability.
Yeah.
We don't want any liabilities or any mavericks or any wild loose cannons.
Yeah, and it's important that you've been through this process because it means that you're therefore sort of already part of, some sort of a.
But it's interesting though that the meritocracy theory came out in countries. It was for the working class. It was paid. It was put out there for the working class to give the working class hope. Don't worry. If you work hard, you're going to get there. And that's why it held so much ground in America.
Yeah, but it's just a neoliberal fucking dream, isn't it? The individual.
I know, but what I'm saying is, then it all kind of comes together, because if you're building a society, you're up here, say you're up here building a society, and you go, right, we need those to work hard. Yeah, they're getting upset, don't they? Right. Tell them if they really work hard, they're going to get something. Give a couple of those thousand something. Let them get there. And then meritocracy works.
Yeah,
right?
that's why it's like religion, isn't it? It's like, behave now. You're promise
but
you get
at
loads
least
of nice
the
things when you're dead, I promise. I mean, it's going to be horrible now, but it's going to be worth it because you get loads of nice things when you're dead.
So capitalism is a religion, basically.
Yeah. Made up.
There's loads of extremists, by the way.
Yeah.
Loads of
Yeah.
them. Like terrorists. They just go crush the market.
Capitalist
What they want.
insurgents.
You lose all your money, and they're laughing.
Yeah, and it's weird, isn't it? Because we make all these things about like, oh well, like with your parents say, oh, if you don't do this, you're not going to have a job. But it's like, well, money's not real. I mean, I know obviously you need to be able to eat and stuff like that, but it's so strange that we've kind of completely internalized it within everything that nobody even questions or not.
But it's the safety net, isn't it? It's like I totally believe my mum that did all they did or whatever in good faith.
No, but it's not weird. I'm not saying that they hold a weird logical thing to say in a situation where we are ruled by money, but like, because it is just made up, right? And it can go wrong very quickly, and money can mean nothing very quickly. And all of the life skills that that I see as being like what I was brought up being told is what it is to be proud to be working class was kind of idea about making your own clothes and being able to grow your own food or whatever, or those sort of things were like the things that my mum's grandparents brought her up with, like, and all of those things those are real things, right? They're actual real things, but we will give those up to chase anything that could just disappear in an instant. Even if we had it, it could be nothing. And I mean,
that's another interesting
calls for
thing.
life.
Because my mum and dad believe that they are privileged now because they can grow their own thing.
Well, I think that's the best thing, is to have somewhere to grow food.
But it's interesting because you made a whole life with your career and money to secure for your family, for kids, for whatever. And then when you're in your 80s, you finally go, all right, now that I've got that safety net, I can finally be privileged and grow my own veggies. Could have done that at the beginning.
Well, you've got to have somewhere to grow them, haven't you?
Aha, so privilege is to have a land. And that's
what
why
I do.
that's why
That's what I
land is
do.
so important, because nobody can have a land. None of us can have land.
Yeah.
There's no land. It's
I mean, I
held
think
by
that's-
2 people.
I think that's the biggest, should be the only fight anyone's worried about, is land ownership in this country. I can't speak for other countries, so I don't know. But in this country, that's the right to land is, that's it. It's everything hinges on that. Everything.
Yes. Because then you can be independent, whether you
Yeah.
have money or not. And that's what I read, because someone told me at some point, we was talking about this privilege thing, and this person said, well, we are privileged just because we are white in a Western society. I was like, well, that sounds patronizing to me. And then I found this poem from this Senegal girl. My dad has always been told he was poor because he never had more than $1 in his pocket. But my dad has always thought he's been rich because he's always made us go to school. He's always He's always had land. He's always brought fresh products to the table. My dad doesn't think he's poor. It's the world that thinks he's poor. So it's like, well, turn the whole thing around. There you go. We are stupid. I mean, saying I'm privileged because I'm Western is super patronizing. It's more patronizing than anything else. Is putting yourself on the pedestal just by saying you're Western. So you're saying capitalism is what works. Full stop. Being Western is what works. Full stop.
Yeah.
And on that, I'm gonna put my face down. That is cool. The face down is cool. Okay. I think I'm done.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, we did it.
So we've sorted that one.
Yeah.
What's on the agenda next week? Well,
The next one should think. What shall we do? Alice, what do you think would be a good topic of discussion? One
not
day
this discussion. We've fixed that
Yes,
now.
something
That's
that-
fixed. It's
that
sorted.
hasn't been fixed
Yeah.
yet, but that we can fix.
I mean, we
like,
started with a biggie, didn't we?
yeah,
Maybe we should have something a bit easier, like, I don't know.
cider or beer.
What about next time we can do something else? Well, I think privilege actually fixes quite a lot of things, doesn't it?
Is it ethical to have domestic pets?
Oh, that's a good one. That's
Yes,
a fucking great one.
please.
Come on, let's do that next.
Yes.
And we've got to have the cats in the pool, whether they fucking like it or not. It's ethical.
Cats in the pool.
Yes. So pets, and ethical pets.
Yeah. There's
And
no,
that's what-
there's no such thing as an ethical cat, though, is there? Look at them.
We feel
They look at
like
ethics and they go, psst. Oh, I shit ethics on the
you
cat
should
tray.
your ethics. They use your ethics as a
Actually,
scratch tray.
I look
Exactly.
at your cat tray and a ship behind it.
Yeah.
That's how ethical I am.
Yeah. I think that, yeah.
Right, I'm gonna get that because I'm gonna stop that.
So what does that mean? Does that mean it's on the telly?
Bye bye. It's on the telly. Are we on the telly now?